So, good morning. Hi, Harsh. How are you
Morning,
today?
Sohini. Good, good. How about you?
So good to see you. I'm good. I'm good.
Same here.
It's really good to connect with you.
Same here, Sohini.
So, tell me more. Tell me more about yourself. Tell me how, what you like, what you don't like, what kind of, what kind of knowledge appeals to you. Um,
Okay,
what do you seek?
oh, that's a
What do
big
you
question.
seek?
Yeah.
Hmm.
I basically come from Patna. Okay, my family
Okay.
belongs there, and I'm an engineer. And I think my schooling played a really important part in the journey that I basically seek. It
Hmm.
was one of the schools which teach you spirituality in a different way. You must have heard about Ramakrishna Mission, right?
Oh
Since
yes, of course, of
yeah,
course.
yeah. So I did my schooling there, like the very initial part of the schooling, and that kind of put in the seed at the very like I was like I think sixth standard or seventh standard. I'm not sure, but that's when I was exposed to spirituality, and I kind of I was exposed to it when I didn't know about it. Okay, and I didn't know
Hmm.
what it means and why people pursue it. So I was just
Hmm.
into the whole practice. Okay, and the school take you through, like all the students, through practice of meditating, of remembering God and stuff like that, and the teachings of Vivekananda and the writings, all of that. So, and being a child of seventh standard, eighth standard, I didn't know about it, and I really didn't connect with it. But that kind of gave the background of what I seek. Basically, it's more towards internal reflection and like figuring out yourself, your thoughts, and basically the dialogue that's continuously going in your head about what's right, what's wrong, what's
Hmm.
virtuous. So all of that is something that really interested me. And one of my mutual friends basically connected me to Maulana, and I probably had read some of his answers, like popular questions that trend, and I was like,
Hmm.
okay, this is very intriguing. So I was like, okay, can I meet this guy? Like, really? Like, he's such a figure. And, so he was like, my friend was like, yeah, yeah. Like, we have every Sunday, we have a get together where he talks about some of Islamic, teachings, and in a very interesting and, and anecdotal way. So I was like, yeah, let's go, let's do that. So that's how I was basically, introduced to Maulana.
Wow. So, tell us about your first memory of meeting him. Like, what was it like going there and listening to, like earlier in our Indian tradition, we had this whole thing. The gurus used to sit under a tree and, through parables and all of that. We used to listen to stories, right? But
Yeah.
these days we don't have that. So, what was your experience like going back to that? When you met Maulana and
So, so
him
I was a bit
teaching you.
skeptical. Okay, like to be honest, I was very skeptical that I'm meeting a guru sort of a person, that too who's a Muslim and teaches Islam. So
Mm-hmm.
the skepticism basically came in from the common narrative that we have around us in the society, right? That you have to hold on to your religion. You cannot actually go and ask questions about a different religion, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and you cannot actually take teachings, or it's not interdisciplinary thoughts that you are taught. Basically, like Hinduism has a set of rules, Muslims, like Islam has a set of rules. That kind of skepticism, that basically had that like I had that nervousness probably, or like I was not sure of what to expect basically. And like my friend basically, so Maulana has a habit of whenever he meets people, he'll just randomly ask, "Tell me something." Okay, and I didn't know about this. Okay, he does this with everybody, and I didn't know this about it. And I think knowingly, my friend didn't tell me. Okay, and I was taken aback by the question that okay, I have come here to listen, not to like talk, basically. So that happened, and that kind of put me on the spot. And I think I don't know what I blabbered in that moment, but something happened, and then then he was like, yeah, chill. And yeah, so that's how I met Maulana. And I remember I couldn't really get much of what he was talking in the first session that I had.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but when you actually put in more attention to it, you need to put more attention to it. That what he's speaking, you'll have to kind of put your mind to it and like start processing it very fast, because his stories are full of these small learnings that probably is not intended, but the larger message is something else. But he'll put in different stories and different learnings that you can take and apply wherever you want it. So
Is there anything specific that really like stuck with you? Like any one of those stories, maybe any moment, anything that sort of really you remember, like something that left an impact.
so at that time, around I think I met him in 2018 or 17, and I'm not sure. But
Mm-hmm.
I was that time I was going through this dialogue inside my head that should I turn vegetarian basically or not? Like,
Okay.
and that was
Uh-huh.
the dialogue that I was going through in my mind. Like killing a person, like killing someone to actually have your food. Is it right or is it wrong? And so I basically asked him this, okay, and he started narrating a story as he does. So I think he's told me that he's in Russia, and there's nothing really vegetarian that you get in Russia. So he doesn't usually eat non-vegetarian food. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so he said that since nothing was available there, I had to actually switch, and that's how things are in life. That it's not black and white. It's very case to case basis. You obviously should hold on to what you feel, right? But at the same time you'll have to make adjustments, because it's not always you can, or it's very difficult sometimes to actually hold on to things. So yeah, that's kind of, I think, stuck with me and helped me also find that answer within myself, that what should I be doing.
Wow. That's amazing. So, tell me a little more about this part that you said that, the first time when you met him, like you couldn't completely understand a lot of things he was saying, that you had to sort of, it was a new way of listening to something.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
you have to process and reflect and take those reflections in. And it's a lot of work, like a lot of mental work. But
Yeah.
tell me, what made you go back again? Like, you could have given up and not wanted to put in that extra effort, but what is it that stuck, that made you go back, that made you pursue this relationship?
So I actually went back after a month or 2 months. I don't remember. Okay, it like after the first meeting, I was kind of taken aback that should I be going back? I didn't understand anything, and I had more doubts. Okay, but what made me go back was that when he was speaking, I was very calm. Okay, like, and he was talking about something in the history, something about the history, and how something came. I don't remember exactly what the story he was telling that day, but that somehow made me, like, the mental chatter was not there, and I was very calm in the moment present. Okay, that feeling basically made me go back. And this I realized this after a while, like after 2 months, that that, like, time, the period that I was with Maulana, and probably the whole day I was in my like self-reflecting, asking questions, and trying to figure out stuff. So that was the mental space I was in that day, but I didn't realize this. And 2 months back, like after 2 months, I think I kind of missed it, and I kind of remembered it. Oh, this happened that day, and let's explore more, or probably let's just go back to that peaceful state where you kind of talk to yourself and self-reflect. So I think that, yeah,
So do you
definitely.
like go regularly these days? Like, do you listen
Not
to him
now,
regularly?
obviously.
Obviously not now, but
Yeah,
yeah, like
but yeah, I do definitely.
Okay, so how has that journey been? Like, has it changed you in any way? Like, have you seen yourself evolve, or uh, anything specific? Like, the before after uh, scene. Like, what's it been like? Like,
So I think the uh, the the most important thing that has happened with me due to Maulana is I have become more accepting of people, of things around me. That's, I think, the most important thing that has happened with me. I was initially as well challenging this thought that, should I be doing this? Is the person right or wrong? I was asking those questions, but now I'm at more peace with everything around. I accept things how they are, and kind of try to again navigate my way through how the things have changed. So I think that's probably the most important thing. I think many of the Maulana's teaching are actually not specific to religion. Like some of his answers, if you see, don't even include religion. Okay, they'll just say that life is difficult. Life will throw certain things at you, and that's because for you to basically become stronger and navigate your way through it. It's nothing related to religion, nor Hinduism, nor Islam, nothing. So I think that kind of really attracts uh, me to him and his teachings.
yes, what I have always found interesting is that he does derive his wisdom from the Quran and the Hadith, but the way he communicates them, it is more of, he sort of brings out the universality of it, and he applies it to everyday contexts which are very relatable for not just the Muslim community leading their lives a certain way. It's for like a lot of, like, everyone who would be able to relate in that sense. So,
Definitely.
uh, tell me more about you know how um, how have you grown in your own identity when you've, like, when have you ever felt that uh, there has been anything conflicting when it comes to you taking in what he says should be believed, or should be, it should, like, you should have faith in, or uh, this whole thing about, we often see this narrative out there that, if you are a follower of one tradition, you will find truth in only that tradition, and you wouldn't be sort of, you would probably be threatening your own identity if you try and see an alternative perspective, or maybe something which says somewhat something which is universal, but something which is maybe demonstrated, or expressed or mentioned in a
So
different way. So,
I,
like, I find that very interesting, and there have been moments, for me at least, when initially I used to be like, am I really doing anything wrong with my own identity, or am I, diluting it in any way by accepting the wisdom and the knowledge, and and the way of another community, like accepting, even embracing certain parts of it, often participating in things, like, how is my identity supporting it, or like, am I growing in my identity, or is it threatened? That's like a very interesting question, which has always occurred to me as something that many of us struggle with often. I mean, the best of us often do. But I
definitely.
wonder
And
if you've been through anything similar.
so I have been through it, but it was not internal. It was like an external pressure that you'll have to maintain your identity.
Hmm.
So I think uh, from I was exposed. Like, I had many Muslim friends, and I often found myself actually interacting with them more than my Hindu friends. I don't know why is that, but that was the case since the very beginning. Okay, during my higher secondary schooling, I had a very close Muslim friend. Again, in my college, I had a very close Muslim friend, and I always found them, more interested in religion, and actually, they actually have had that dialogue internally as well, that what their religion represents to them, they kind of are more aware, okay, than others. And I always found them very intriguing. And like with them, I kind of had really interesting times. So I was internally, I never had that identity conflict. Okay. And externally, I used to feel that as like my other friends, or probably the society that's around you, tells you that, you should not be doing this. And
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't sure that why, like it's about interaction. It's about making connections, and actually getting to know more about yourself, the other person, and probably, something higher. And that was happening, and it was happening with other Hindu friends as well. It's not something that is very exclusive to Muslim friends, but at the same time, I found that very conflicting with my own self. And that, I think, kind of helped me. Like, I was lucky enough to have that, like have those friends, which basically taught me that identity is something that you make, and not something is forced upon you. uh, when you go out and take stuff that you relate to, be it from anywhere, that's your identity. That we got, because you think that that's correct according to you, or you kind of relate to it. That becomes a part of your identity now. It's more of like fetching those things and making your identity, than actually conforming to certain boundaries that somebody else has actually set for you. And then you have that dialogue, okay, am I compromising anything, or am I not? I
Mm-hmm.
think that's been the case for me. And coming to Maulana, it was very similar. I already had that what was it? I already had that acceptance that good can be found anywhere, and I should be looking for it across. It's not specific to. So I was actually interested in other religions as well. I follow Buddhism. I kind of read Zen philosophy as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just
Yeah.
Muslims, or it's not just Hinduism that I follow. And I think everything has a lot to offer, right? And a lot of things which you won't be able to connect, because you haven't been in those circumstances, and you won't be able to understand. But I think it's like the at least what this is what I feel, that you have to go across, like you have to open your doors to everything, and then kind of let in whatever you think makes sense with you.
True, true. So anything, as you very interestingly said that, whatever you take from whatever is relatable to you, becomes a part of your identity. That's a very, very interesting concept. Um, could you maybe tell us a little more about what you have taken from your interactions with Maulana, which you could relate to a lot, and which has pretty much become a part of you, and maybe has even led to inner transformation, or maybe adopting a different way of looking at things. So anything specific that you can think about?
So with Maulana, it's been like things, very basic things. How humble he is in his dialogue with anybody, right? That's something that I've taken from Maulana. That it's like the moment you interact with him, like your mental state basically changes and goes to a different level. He kind of, responds to you in a very calming, humble way, irrespective of where you come from, the kind of experience that you have about any religion, or for the matter, like that matter, life itself, right? He will
Mm-hmm.
like initiate that dialogue, and you basically start having that. So I think that's one of the things. Apart from that, he almost all of his answers will have that, you'll have to persevere through most of the things in life. Okay, and that's how you are going to learn about yourself, build your character, and that's the second thing that I've learned from Alana. And actually, you know, third would be like, what virtues are. and a lot of his answers would be about virtue and how you can actually pursue them and how you can build your character across, like around those virtues. So I think these three things are majorly that I have taken from his teachings, and that's something that I look forward as well, because that kind of resonates with my thought processes, and that's something that I think that is very essential to anybody's life.
That's really interesting. Does anything else come to mind where you can like anything interesting, anything else that you would like to share about your journey with Maulana so far? Anything at all?
Uh, like, I'm really sorry, but I don't have any.
That's all right. That's all right. I guess I've just drilled a lot, like probed a lot. So already, like, you've come up with some really, really good stuff. So thank you so much.
Okay.
It was a pleasure speaking with you, connecting with you.
Definitely.
So thank you
Definitely.
so
It was
much
a
for
pleasure meeting
sharing
you.
this. Thank you
Sure.
for sharing this.
I am not sure what I shared, but let's see.
No, you did. You did. You did. All of us have different ways of sharing things.
Yeah.
So you did your best. And I hope my questions were insightful enough as well, because I was
Yeah,
very
definitely.
closely and very, very keenly following your narrative. And it was honestly, it was amazing. It was quite eye-opening. And especially
Thank
that
you.
part where whatever you relate to becomes a part of your identity. That is something that will stick with you. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. And this conversation will again take me back to the journey that, of self-reflection and, thinking more about things that I said and probably you said. So yeah, it's definitely a reflective process. You go back all the time whenever you feel the need to, and yeah, it's a huge process that you
Yeah,
have
it's
to do
just
every
like
day.
a constant ongoing process. And once you come into the fold of Maulana, he will keep making sure that you have enough food for thought to always keep reflecting. And that's one
Definitely,
thing that
definitely.
I have taken from him. I mean, I still remember the first time I met him. I He didn't even know like my full name then, and somehow he told me a sort of like a lot of things. He shared a lot of things which were so relevant to my life at that point of time. I felt like he was X-raying me, like X-raying my brain or something, and like figuring out. Somehow he knew exactly what I needed, and I felt so calm, and I felt like this that I was in the presence of um, a sort of a grounding power which was, you know, almost becoming a mirror for me of what I needed to see. Like, somebody is holding up the mirror and showing you that this is what you're
Yeah,
not able to see. And the way he did it, it was the first day that I met him in person, and I was very conscious. I still remember I was extremely conscious because I did not know much about Islam, and I knew that he's an Islamic studies scholar, he's a peace activist. And though I'd met people from his team before in Kolkata, but then I honestly didn't know what to expect. And I was like, I don't have any knowledge. So even if like he says anything, I won't probably understand. And I don't know what to ask him. And I don't know Arabic. I haven't read the Quran. So I don't know how this whole conversation is going to be. But it just, like the moment I came into his presence, and I still remember him saying that, so that thing that you told me, that he says, "Tell me something." He just told me,
yeah,
"So why don't you tell me something, young lady?" And I was like, "Okay." My response was exactly the same. Like, I've come here to listen. Not
yeah,
to speak. I mean, what do I speak like in front of you? Like, you're such a
yeah,
celebrity.
exactly.
So I'm like, what do I say? And then he said something like, I was sitting like this, and I was already like sort of in that mode where I'm going to be listening to my grandfather share a story. So I sort of got comfortable that way, and I didn't even realize that. So he just says that, looks like you're expecting something, and the way you have your arm placed tells me that you have a very big heart. And I was like, okay. And then I was conscious all of a sudden, like, how am I sitting in the presence of such an esteemed scholar? And then it was just a very sweet way in which he got me comfortable. And after like the first, I think, 15 minutes, I completely, like, that dissolved that whole idea that, I'm the only Hindu girl in the room and I'm meeting this esteemed scholar who teaches, I don't know, millions of people every day. I know nothing about his tradition, nothing about the Quran. I'm just sitting here expecting what? And then he just starts speaking. And when he just starts speaking, and he
Yeah,
comes up with, uh, you know, certain points and, wisdom. And I was exactly at that point where I needed to hear them. So it
yeah.
made sense to me when I was listening to him. And I was like,
It's
is this like, is this like happening? Is this really happening? How did he know? Like, how did he know? And I was like, did anyone give him like a pretext or something? And I was like, it couldn't be, because these are personal things I wouldn't be sharing with anybody. And how would anybody know what kind of an emotional situation I'm going through? I mean, I just
yeah,
came in just like random thing, and that, I think, that stuck with me. That is what made me go back. That how can somebody uh, actually understand the needs of a stranger, a complete stranger, in such a way that he makes his teachings so relevant to you at any given point. It's almost
yeah,
like he does that for everyone, and
yeah.
they're
He does
so
that for everyone.
relatable.
I
And
remember the
just start
same.
reflecting.
Yeah, I remember the same thing. And as you said, his presence is so grounding that you cannot actually describe how it is. And actually, that's the thing that actually made me go back to him in the first place. And like exactly as like you said, I kind of blabbered something, and I don't really know what I said, and I honestly don't remember, but I'm probably like I'm sure that my friend would remember. I'll probably ask him like how I reacted, and then probably I'll get back to you. But uh, it like I don't know if he does that to just to put people on the spot or something similar, but uh, the whole process makes you very comfortable and kind of makes you leave all the baggage that you have outside and be there as a person who's just like wants to know things and wants to basically sort out some things, like sort the things out that's going inside his or her mind. And I think that's been the common narrative in each of the sessions that I have been in.
It's like he flicks on a switch inside you. Like all of a
Yeah,
sudden, you're like
definitely.
all reflecting, and you're like, okay, I didn't even know that I was capable of this. For me, that has been one of the biggest takeaways. Unfortunately, I'm not based out of Delhi, so it's not been possible for me to go visit him again and again. I've visited him like 2, 3 times over the last couple of years, but I've been reading his books, and I sometimes follow his lectures as well. Whenever I have internet connection during my travels. But then it's always been like, those are the few milestone moments in life when you realize that somewhere life is pushing you to evolve. And maybe there are people like Maulana who actually
Definitely.
sort of are still in here, is in our lives, like who come into our lives to sort of handhold you and just, you know, tell you that,
Yeah,
okay, buck up. This is something you got to be doing. I mean,
yeah,
this is a phase. And I personally believe that that's how I started out. I mean, I couldn't have the whole idea of like I didn't even know then when I met Maulana that I was going to step into the field of dialogue. But it's that encounter with Maulana which showed me that there is incredible strength in the intention to connect. And when we actually do that while deriving from the wisdom of our traditions, and we connect in order to give, we always seek to give. It's it, it nothing else matters. None of the other boundaries or barriers which are sort of put out uh, to sort of stop you from exploring, It's like all of a sudden I felt that my world opened up, and opened up in a way I couldn't have imagined.
Yeah.
So my family has a partition history. So my
Okay.
grandparents came in from, like, my grandmother particularly came in from Bangladesh,
Okay.
and suffered severe communal riots and everything. So
Mhm.
naturally, I grew up in a household where there were the scars of history
Yeah.
and scars of those experiences. But I always sort of felt that a part of me wanted to be liberated of that history. It's like I wanted to see if there could be a new narrative. It scared me sometimes because obviously, like, when your elders are not that open to you exploring, and your community is always sort of trying to instill fear in you.
Very
It's
new,
like,
and like the boundaries.
yeah, the boundaries, like, you don't do this, and if you go this far after this, you don't know where you're headed, and all of that. But I've always somewhere felt this urge to explore. And that's why the first question I asked you was about what do you seek? Because I somehow very deeply believe that everybody who comes into the fold of Maulana or finds their way to Maulana somewhere, I think they're seeking something. And they're,
Definitely.
because otherwise, you wouldn't have that sense of wanting to connect, wanting to learn, wanting to explore truth. So when that urge becomes really, really strong, that you want to know, you want to see what will happen, what can go wrong, what can go wrong, to go and just connect with someone who is teaching millions of people. Let's just go listen to it.
Yeah.
And that when that happens, I guess that is when you are pulled to people like Maulana, people who have such a beautiful grounding effect. I mean, meeting him has changed my life completely, like completely. And I have so many friends now. Before, I honestly did not have many Muslim friends. Like, I'm not as lucky as you that I've had many Muslim friends. So I had Christian friends, I had Sikh friends, but I did not exactly have Muslim friends. And somewhere something even stopped me, So I had sort of like this, I don't know, I don't know if it was fear, it was prejudice, it was stereotype. It was this mental construct that I can't trust Muslims. And this was, I'm very honest about it these days. But then it just shifted, one encounter, and just completely shifted. And these days I have so many Muslims in my life. CPS entire team is like a family to me. And I don't know, I mean, it's been so much easier for me to break free and like just start exploring. It's been wonderful.
Definitely.
I mean, it's also
I
opened me up to exploring relationships with other communities more.
obviously once you start having like taking those steps, it's like all around, right? It's not just in one direction. You'll be taking those steps and accepting people from all parts of life and all, parts of religion. So obviously that will happen. I have been like, really lucky that since childhood, I had Muslim friends all like across. Some of my Muslim friends are Bengali, and they come from, Chobis Pargana or some places like that. And I interacted with him on a daily basis, and I didn't find any difference in how they have grown up and how I have grown up. They kind of grew up in a similar kind of a society, and I kind of grew up in a similar kind of society. And I always believed that it's like we are very similar across religions. It's not just Muslims, but it's just that I have had more exposure with Muslims. So, and I could never actually point out the differences that we are different here or probably we are different there, and that's where the dialogue basically started. That it's and but as you said, the society or the internal bound like mental construct that you have, you are basically told that there's a difference, but I
Mm,
never found those differences. Okay, on the
mm,
like on the ground or the reality, and that's basically asked me, like I basically asked myself that you need to explore more, you need to push those boundaries. So I started going to these people's homes, started meeting their families. Okay, and they were very welcoming all the time. Okay, so and the common narrative is you have to stay away, and you have to hold on to your identity, as you said. and I never found the need to it. Uh, so yeah, that has been the one of the major things that helps me to actually go on and like take the teachings from Maulana, from other religions. And Maulana has been very special because it's so easy to speak to him. And I wasn't expecting someone who's a religious scholar like him has written books. I don't know how many books. I'm not sure, and I won't be going there. But and he's recognized internationally, and he's so accessible to everybody. That's something very interesting, like very interesting. And the effect that you have, like he has on you, is like a totally different narrative.
True, true. Thank you so much. Uh, it has
Thank
been an
you.
absolute pleasure learning from you. And
Learning from you, I won't say that, but
of course, I do believe, and this is like the cornerstone of dialogue, that we are. It's a two-way flow of conversation, two-way flow of information, and it's a mutual learning process always. So when I came in to talk to you, the first thing that I did was I practiced my intention to listen to learn, and that's what I always do. So yes, I have learned a lot, and I will be definitely applying them in my life. And uh, thank you so much for agreeing to do this again. And it's wonderful to sort of learn and reflect on this and share it with the world, because that's what's necessary for those who
definitely,
haven't done it yet.
yeah,
It's so important to reflect. It's so important to be critical of the narrative around, of the narrative that shapes you, and to ask yourself that, do you choose to stick to this narrative, or do you
stick
want
to
to
the narrative.
explore? Do you want to
Definitely. So
explore? So yeah,
yes,
from one seeker to the other, it's been a great morning talking to you.
definitely.
So
I'm sure this day would be nice.